This is the Salton Sea today. The ground beneath your feet here does not crunch like sand. It snaps. That is because this beach isn't made of rock or shell. It is paved with the white sun-bleached skeletons of millions of dead fish. The air reeks of sulfur and decay, and the dust blowing off this drying lakebed is so toxic it is poisoning the lungs of children miles away. And yet, inside this collapse, something else is beginning to grow. A new kind of opportunity is quietly taking shape here. Yet just 60 years ago, this shoreline echoed with the roar of speedboats and the clinking of champagne glasses. It was marketed as the future of leisure in the American West. A true miracle in the desert. Speedboats raced across the water, and water skiers danced in their wake. But beneath the surface, the clock was already ticking. The story of the Salton Sea is not a mystery, and it is not an accident of nature. It is a clear and well-documented engineering failure, followed by a century of chemical neglect. It is one of the most important lessons in modern environmental history because it shows how a single decision can reshape an entire landscape and how ignoring basic physical laws can turn a useful project into a slow-moving disaster, or perhaps into something entirely different. To understand how the Salton Sea was created, you first need to understand where it is. Southern California contains a large desert basin known as the Salton Sink. This basin lies below sea level. For thousands of years, it has acted like a bowl. When water enters the basin, it has nowhere to go. In prehistoric times, the Colorado River occasionally flooded into this sink and formed large lakes that later evaporated away. By the late 19th century, the basin was dry, flat, and extremely fertile, if only water could be brought to it. At the turn of the 20th century, American agriculture was expanding fast. Investors and engineers believed that deserts were wasted land waiting to be transformed by canals and irrigation. The Colorado River was seen as an untapped engine of growth. It carried enormous volumes of water and sediment from the Rocky Mountains down toward the Gulf of California. The challenge was how to divert some of that water into the Imperial Valley on the California side of the border. This challenge was taken up by a private company called the California Development Company. Its goal was simple in concept: cut a canal from the Colorado River and deliver water to the desert farms of Southern California. The company lacked money, time, and political backing. Because of that, many engineering decisions were made quickly and cheaply. Those decisions would later prove catastrophic. The original plan was to build a controlled intake canal entirely within the United States. This canal would divert water safely and predictably. But the Colorado River is not a gentle river. It carries huge amounts of sediment. Early test canals filled with silt almost immediately. Maintaining them would have been expensive. The company chose a shortcut. They routed the main canal through Mexico, where land was cheaper and regulations were minimal. This canal became known as the Alamo Canal. To increase water flow, engineers cut temporary breaches directly into the riverbank of the Colorado River. These cuts were meant to be temporary. They had no proper gates, no concrete lining, no ability to be closed quickly. The plan was to use the river itself to scour the canal deeper, and then later install proper control structures. This was a dangerous gamble. In 1905, the gamble failed. That year brought unusually heavy snowmelt in the Rocky Mountains. The Colorado River swelled far beyond its normal size. When the floodwaters reached the uncontrolled canal cuts, they did exactly what physics predicts. Water flows downhill along the easiest path. The temporary cuts widened instantly. The river tore into them with enormous force. Within days, the entire Colorado River abandoned its natural channel and began flowing directly into the Alamo Canal. From there, it surged into the Salton Sink. There were no gates to close, no emergency structures. The California Development Company had no ability to stop what they had unleashed. For 2 full years, the Colorado River flowed unchecked into the desert basin. Imagine the scale of that error. One of the largest rivers in North America was pouring into a low-lying desert bowl day and night. Rail lines were destroyed. Towns were flooded. Southern Pacific Railroad crews fought desperately to plug the breach using rock, timber, and soil. Several attempts failed as the river simply tore through every barrier. It was not until 1907 that the river was finally forced back into its original course. By then, the damage was irreversible. A massive inland sea had formed. It covered over 300 square miles. It was more than 40 miles long. This new body of water became known as the Salton Sea. At first, the sea seemed like a miracle. Fish were introduced. Birds flocked to it. Resorts and marinas appeared along its shores. It looked like a permanent lake had been created by human ingenuity, but the engineering failure had planted a chemical time bomb that would take decades to fully reveal itself. The fundamental problem was simple and absolute. The Salton Sea is a closed basin. Water flows in, but it does not flow out. There is no river carrying water away. There is no underground outlet. The only way water leaves the system is through evaporation. Evaporation removes pure water. It does not remove salt. It does not remove fertilizers. It does not remove pesticides. Every year, irrigation runoff from Imperial Valley farms flows into the sea. That runoff carries dissolved minerals from the soil. It carries nitrogen and phosphorus from fertilizers. It carries traces of agricultural chemicals. As water evaporates under the intense desert sun, everything dissolved in that water stays behind. This means concentration increases year after year. The process is slow but relentless. It is basic chemistry. When the Salton Sea first formed, its salinity was lower than ocean water. Over time, it rose steadily. Today, the salinity is far higher than the Pacific Ocean. Many species cannot survive in it anymore. But salt is only part of the problem. The nutrient load entering the sea created ideal conditions for explosive algae growth. Nitrogen and phosphorus act as fuel for algae. When temperatures rise, algae blooms spread across the surface. These blooms are not harmless. They block sunlight and disrupt the balance of the water. Eventually, the algae die. When they sink, bacteria begin to decompose them. That decomposition consumes oxygen dissolved in the water. As oxygen levels drop, fish suffocate. This process is called hypoxia. In extreme cases, it becomes anoxia, where oxygen levels approach zero. This is why the Salton Sea experiences massive fish die-offs. Millions of fish can die in a single event. The shoreline becomes littered with rotting carcasses. The smell of hydrogen sulfide gas fills the air. It smells like rotten eggs, and it is a direct result of anaerobic bacterial activity. The death of fish creates a feedback loop. Fish normally consume algae and help maintain balance. When fish populations collapse, algae blooms become even worse. The system spirals further out of control. But perhaps the most dangerous consequence of the Salton Sea collapse is not in the water. It is in the air. As water inflow decreases due to conservation measures and climate change, the sea is shrinking. Exposed lakebed, known as playa, is left behind. This dry sediment is not clean sand. It is loaded with salt, heavy metals, pesticide residues, and biological toxins. When desert winds pick up, they lift this fine dust into the air. These dust storms travel across the Imperial Valley and beyond. People breathe it in. The particles penetrate deep into the lungs. Asthma rates in nearby communities are among the highest in California. Children are especially vulnerable. The dust irritates airways, triggers inflammation, and worsens existing respiratory conditions. Long-term exposure increases the risk of chronic illness. The Salton Sea is not dying because of mystery forces. It is dying because an engineering mistake was never fully corrected, and because society treated the sea as a waste reservoir instead of a living system. There have been many proposals to save it. Some involve importing water. Others involve creating smaller managed lakes. Some focus on dust suppression rather than restoring the sea itself. All face political, financial, and logistical obstacles. But the Salton Sea is not only a place of decay. It also sits on top of enormous energy. Beneath the southern edge of the lake, the Earth is unusually active. Magma lies closer to the surface here. Water trapped underground heats up to extreme temperatures. For decades, this heat has been tapped to produce geothermal power. Steam rises from deep wells. Turbines spin. Electricity flows into the grid. The contrast is striking. While the surface ecosystem collapses, clean energy is quietly produced just a few kilometers away. Today, the Salton Sea geothermal field is one of the most productive geothermal regions in the United States. Inside that superheated underground water is something else. Lithium, the element that powers modern batteries, electric vehicles, energy storage systems. The geothermal brine beneath the Salton Sea contains some of the highest lithium concentrations ever measured in geothermal fluids. In some areas, concentrations exceed 200 parts per million. That may sound small, but at industrial scale, it is enormous. Estimates suggest the region could contain enough lithium to supply millions of electric vehicle batteries every year. Some projections place the total resource in the millions of tons, potentially rivaling major global producers. This has turned the region into what some now call Lithium Valley. Companies are racing to develop technologies that can extract lithium directly from geothermal brine while still producing electricity. The idea is to pull lithium out of the hot water, then re-inject the fluid back underground. No open pit mines, no massive evaporation ponds. If it works as promised, this would be one of the cleanest forms of lithium production in the world. A place once defined by environmental collapse could become central to the clean energy transition. The same mistake that created the sea may now sit beside a resource critical to the future. The Salton Sea today is a landscape of contradiction. On the surface, there is decay, toxic water, exposed lakebed, dust carried by the wind into nearby towns, a slow-moving environmental disaster that never fully stopped. Beneath that surface, there is power, heat rising from deep within the earth, electricity flowing quietly into the grid, brine rich with lithium that could shape the next generation of energy. This place exists because of human ambition. It survived because of neglect. And now it stands at a crossroads created by the same forces that built it. The Salton Sea holds the record of past mistakes and the raw materials of future solutions in the same stretch of desert. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. See you in the next video.